Okay, let's talk about cannabis. It's this single plant, and somehow it's at the very center of a huge, complex national debate. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry, a so-called wellness miracle, and at the same time, a source of really deep social division. So we're going to unpack the science, the politics, and the very human stories behind the cannabis question.
I mean, think about it. It's gone from an illicit underground market to the store right down the street. Legal cannabis has become this massive economic force. It's in our teas, our candies, our lotions. It has moved squarely into our daily lives. And that's created a completely new reality for all of us.
And yet, here's the central baffling contradiction. While one person is walking out of a store with a cannabis-infused soda, somewhere else, another person is getting arrested for the very same plant. This one thing is both a celebrated medicine and one of the biggest drivers of mass incarceration in the country. So how can both of those things possibly be true at the same time?
Well, to even begin to understand that, we first have to get a handle on what cannabis actually does inside our bodies. Turns out, it's not just about the plant. It's about this surprisingly sophisticated system that already exists inside of us, a system that cannabis just happens to interact with.
Here's something wild. Every mammal, including you and me, has what's called an endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short. And get this, scientists only discovered it because they were studying cannabis in the first place. This native system of ours, it regulates pretty much everything: sleep, mood, memory, stress. It's constantly working behind the scenes to keep our bodies in a state of balance. Now, the cannabis plant has hundreds of different chemicals, but the two you always hear about are THC and CBD. THC, that's the psychoactive one. It's what produces the high because it binds directly to our ECS receptors. CBD, on the other hand, is non-psychoactive. It works more indirectly, and it can even boost our body's own bliss molecule, a chemical called anandamide.
And the ECS has this really unique trick up its sleeve. So normally, signals in your brain jump from a sending neuron to a receiving one, right? Well, our body's own cannabinoids actually travel backwards across that gap. They essentially go back and tell the sender, hey, calm down, or quiet down a bit. They're like a volume knob for our entire nervous system.
And being able to harness that volume knob, well, that's what fuels all these powerful personal stories behind the medical cannabis movement. It's really a story of desperate people finding hope where traditional medicine had completely failed them.
I mean, just imagine being a parent like Evelyn Nussenbaum, whose child was suffering from hundreds of uncontrollable seizures a day. For them, a specific cannabis compound, CBD, was literally a lifeline. They saw these dramatic, absolutely life-changing reductions in seizures when nothing else had even come close to working.
And you know what? This grassroots movement by these parents, it led directly to rigorous clinical trials. And the result was Epidiolex. This was the first cannabis-derived drug ever approved by the FDA. It was a landmark moment that brought cannabis out of the shadows and into the world of mainstream medicine. We're hearing similar things from veterans who are trying to manage post-traumatic stress. At low doses, cannabis seems to mimic our body's natural stress recovery system, which can help reduce anxiety and improve sleep. But, and this is a big but, it is not a simple fix. High doses of THC can actually make anxiety worse, and of course, it doesn't treat the root cause of the trauma. So for every story of incredible relief, there are also serious questions and scientifically documented risks that, honestly, we are just beginning to understand. The reality of cannabis is, as you might expect, somewhere in the middle.
The risks seem to be especially acute when we talk about the developing brain. Studies on teen users show they can have a thicker cerebral cortex, which suggests that their brain development is being disrupted. And because THC can cross the placenta, prenatal exposure has been linked to a higher risk for psychosis-like experiences in children later on.
Now, let's be clear. When you compare it to legal substances like alcohol or tobacco, cannabis is less addictive. But that does not mean it's harmless. Not at all. It's estimated that about 9% of people who use cannabis will develop what's called a cannabis use disorder. So here's what happens. When the brain is repeatedly flooded with THC, it adapts. It actually starts reducing its own cannabinoid receptors to compensate. So for someone like Paul, who used it for pain and sleep, when he tried to quit, his body's whole system was out of whack, triggering these severe withdrawal symptoms like insomnia.
The health risks are one thing, for sure. But you know what? Perhaps the greatest harm from all of this has come from the laws themselves. We are living through a period of just profound legal and social contradiction. Okay, so here's the core of the problem. In a majority of states, cannabis is legal for medical or adult use, but at the federal level, it is still a Schedule 1 drug, the same category as heroin, with, and I'm quoting here, no currently accepted medical use. And this legal conflict has fueled a really devastating social harm. Just look at this chart. Government data confirms that Black and white people use cannabis at almost identical rates, and yet, Black people are arrested for cannabis offenses far, far more often. And this isn't just a statistic. This is the story of Sean Worsley. He's a veteran with PTSD and a legal medical marijuana card from his home state. During a cross-country trip, he was pulled over in Alabama, arrested, and ultimately put in prison for possessing his legal medicine. All of this brings us to what might be the biggest problem of all. Our laws, our culture, our markets, they're all charging full steam ahead, while the science has been left dangerously far behind. Because cannabis is a Schedule 1 drug, doing research on it is incredibly difficult. So while hundreds of new, super high-potency products are showing up on shelves, we have frighteningly little data on what their long-term effects are. We are all, essentially, part of a massive, unintended public health experiment. So that really leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? As we navigate this new era of mainstream cannabis, we have to ask ourselves, is the greatest danger really in the plant's chemistry, or is it in the profound and systemic ignorance that our own laws have created?